Hey guys, do you recognize this car? Of course, that's the 1970 Triumph TR6. Does it look a little bit different? Well, that's normal considering the last episode of this series was done over 2 years ago. It made some progress since then, but since most of it wasn't in our shop, I can't show you a video of that, but I can show you what I've done after it came back. Actually, before that, let me tell you quickly the story of this car for those of you who joined the channel after I posted the last video. So this car came for frame repair, something that we quoted 6 hours for, and then when we started working on it we figured out that there was a lot of metalwork that still needed to be done, even though the car was prepared for paint before that. We also started the engine to test run it, and we realized that it was knocking a lot because the oil was mixed with gasoline and it was diluted a lot, so the engine needed rebuilding, and we've done that. Meanwhile, we also rebuilt the suspension. At some point we even drove the chassis, just the chassis without the body, and when all this was done we put it together and we sent it to the paint shop to be painted inside.
The day has finally come. It is going to paint. The flatbed is on its way and she's gonna be going to the body shop. They're gonna finish all the prepping and painting. They're gonna paint it inside first, and then we will see what is gonna happen from there.
So like I said, John, the owner of this car, arranged for the car to go to the paint shop so it can be painted inside, including the engine bay and the boot, and then it was gonna come back to be assembled and go again to the paint shop for final painting outside.
On to the next stage.
And then she left the building. So while she was in the paint shop, John spent a lot of time cleaning the floor and under the fenders in the paint shop, and found a little bit more welding that needed to be done. Of course, welding never ends. So I went 2 nights and I worked a little bit on the car in the paint shop, and then they were able to paint the floor underneath and the entire interior. Well, how it sounds, entire interior. Wait, go back. We forgot the intro. Right. Ta-da! There she is, all red and shiny. At least the interior. They painted also some of the other parts, like the rear deck and the front deck, but this is gonna be scuffed and it's gonna be painted again. This is just because they were spraying all over. But the most important thing is the engine bay, the interior and the boot lid. And I think they did a good job. So now we have to take off the body, prepare the chassis for mounting the body on it, and then mount the body permanently. We have to fit all the fenders, the doors, the bonnet, the boot lid, shim the body properly so the gaps are perfect, and then mount the body permanently on the frame, and then send it back to the paint shop for final painting. I think they're gonna have to take out the panels again so they can paint them inside and take care of some missed parts, but the point is that the body is gonna be mounted in the perfect spot, so there's not gonna be a problem mounting the panels back again and maintaining a perfect gap. And as it always happens, as we speak, the things get changed. The body is not on the frame anymore, and it's exposing a frame that's expecting this engine to come on it. Oops, bless me. And yeah, we have to start putting everything together. Alright, so I pulled out the engine and cleaned it up a little bit. It's been sitting on the floor for, I don't know, 3 years now. Maybe less, I don't remember, but you remember the saga with this engine. It was rebuilt and wasn't running very well, and we figured that the camshaft wasn't the best one for this car, so we changed it, And I remember that last when I assembled it, I was missing some gaskets, so this cover needs still to be taken off, and gasket needs to be put there. There's no gasket on the oil pan, and there's no gasket here, but for here we have a new cover, alloy cover, that we're gonna install later. Not for now, we're not gonna do that. I went just now through all these parts to find what I needed. So like I said, the whole purpose of this thing is now to put the body permanently on the frame, install the fenders, and we can install the doors and everything, make sure that everything fits well, adjust the gaps and stuff, and then we all know that the body is gonna be permanently sitting where it's gonna be. Then the fenders are gonna come off again to be painted inside, and the car is gonna go to be painted outside as well. But before we install the body on the frame permanently, we're gonna have to do some other things that I forgot about. But now when I started digging through the stuff here in the boxes, I found all these parts, and I remember that we have to do that. We have to change the boots on the steering rack. It looks a little bit like a flea market. John bought those flexible brake lines, so we have to change those. What is this? So this is the fender mounting kits, the body mounting kit with all the rubbers and stuff. We have to change this mount for the transmission, because we have an overdrive now that we're fitting on this car. It was without overdrive before, but now it's coming with overdrive, so we'll have to see how I'm gonna work out this. And last but not least, the e-brake cables. We're gonna change these. And here are my gaskets for the engine, so I have to install these before we start putting the body on the frame. Also, I don't know why I didn't put these plates and the clutch and flywheel and stuff, so this needs to go in first. So it's gonna take a while. I thought it was gonna be 2 hours and the engine and transmission were gonna be installed, and then I was planning for 12 to 15 hours, I think, to adjust the body, to mount the body on the frame and to adjust the gaps and everything. So we need to put spacers here and there, you know how it all works. Also, we have a trouble a little bit here with when we mounted the jigs in the shop, we snapped one bolt. You know what jigs I'm talking about, the jigs that were flipping back and forth. John has a lot of video footage from the paint shop, so I hope he's gonna share it with me, and we're gonna make one video for all the years that the car hasn't been here. But now hopefully it's gonna get going again, and soon she's gonna be as beautiful as our 1973 TR6, which is covered here. I'm not gonna show it to you now. First of all, I wanted to focus on the engine and complete whatever it needed to be finished, so I can install it on the frame. So I started with the bottom end. I installed the gasket and the oil pan. Then I assembled the front end. Right, so this cover is done, cover in the bottom is done. We still have to put gasket here on the distributor and here. I'm not sure though why this is not mounted. I don't remember from 2 years ago. Maybe there's a problem with this pump, I don't remember. So for now I'm gonna leave it as it is. I'm not gonna put the gasket here because at some point just before we start the car, eventually we're gonna have to prime the oil system, so I'm gonna have to take the distributor out again. So that's when I'm gonna put the gasket, and then we're gonna time it properly and everything. So for now I'm not gonna do anything else anymore here. So I'm gonna take the engine now, I'm gonna put it on this cart, we're gonna mount the rear plate, we're gonna mount the flywheel, the clutch and everything, and then we're gonna leave the engine to the side for a while, and we're gonna focus on what we have to do on the frame. Once the frame is done, we're gonna put the engine, the overdrive transmission, which is somewhere over there, and then we're gonna mount everything here. We're gonna put the body back on, and then we're gonna start working on mounting the fenders, the doors, yeah, and we're gonna go from there. Now, as you can tell, sometimes in the shop it's really noisy, and that's because other people are working on other projects while I'm working on my project, and unfortunately sometimes we have to deal with all this noise. And the next few clips are some of these noisy ones, which I don't really like because they are almost unusable. So I almost have the sound killed here, and they're still annoyingly noisy. So I'm not gonna use much of them. I'm just showing you here how I installed the flywheel and the clutch, and then we're gonna move on to something else not so noisy. So next I changed the boots on the steering rack. For that I put the frame on jack stands, and I had to remove the tie rod ends. That looks optimistic, doesn't it? Okay, don't worry, it's a plastic hammer. I'm also concerned about the threads. However, the plastic hammer didn't help, so I decided to go a little bit heavier, and I took a brass block that I had, and I used it as a protection for the threads, and I used a real hammer, but that didn't help either. So I don't really know how we had the steering rack out of the car, because it was painted and also the suspension was rebuilt, so I don't know how it is possible to get locked so hard, but obviously it did, so I had to bring the heavier equipment. So with the help of the crane and the strap, I put some tension on the tie rod, and then I brought my tie rod end splitter, and that always works. And then obviously I had to remove the tie rod end completely. So I loosened it, and actually it wasn't very tight, because I told you I had it out before, and I didn't tighten it too much because I knew that I had to change the boots. Anyways, so I counted the number of threads that I had to undo, so I can put it back on the same position later. I snapped the piece of wire that was acting as a clamp, and I removed the old boot, which appears to be a good idea, doesn't it? The pin seems to be in a very good shape. There's absolutely no play or drag or anything. So I could, bless me, so I could grease the rack and install the boot. To grease the rack, I extended it as much as I could, and I packed as much grease as I could. Then I slipped the boot on, but I was having troubles putting it on the housing, so I used the trick. Out of a pop can of a known brand, and it must be this brand, just kidding you, can be any brand as long as it's pop can. I have no affiliation with this brand, you know, unfortunately. Anyway, so I cut a strip and I used it as something like a cone to slip the boot on, and it actually worked pretty well. It was still tricky, but it worked. Well, it actually took a lot of time, but it worked. I couldn't find the old piece of wire that I snapped from there, so I went ahead and I used the real clamp. I reinstalled the tie rod end, I turned it the same number of times as when I was taking it off. Made sure it was tight, and I was done with this side. Actually, before I put the wheel back on this side, I went ahead and I changed also the brake hose with the steel braid one. Pretty straightforward job, nothing special about that. I believe it doesn't need too much explanation. And no, I didn't forget to check if it was long enough and if it was interfering with anything. Just have in mind that the long ones go in the front, the short ones go at the back. The other side is almost identical, the only difference is that because there's no housing on this side, the boot at the end is a little bit smaller, the diameter, and that makes it harder to go over the pin. So here I had to use the pop can twice, once to go over the pin, like the bow joint, and then at the end, but it worked well. Okay, so that was it for today. I think I have enough footage now to post an episode and finally start putting this car together and start posting videos again, because there's a lot more that is gonna start happening soon. Hopefully I'm gonna have time for it, because that's the main problem. Not that I don't want to do it, not that I have any other issues. The problem is the time, and time-wise I'm like, I need more time. I wish the days were 27 hours and they were 8 days a week so I can juggle a little bit, but unfortunately we only have 24 hours 7 days a week. Anyways, hopefully we're gonna start our regular scheduled production and we're gonna enjoy our work together. So thanks for watching again, guys. Thanks for being so supportive. So I'll see you soon. Bye.